Stress will kill you. It will also kill your productivity. It will kill your happiness. Today's episode is going to help you identify the indicators that you are stressed. It's going to help you identify specific tips and tactics that you can begin to employ in different areas of your physical health life that will help you be less stressed. You're going to love this episode. It's timely, it's relevant, it's something you're going to want to listen to and share with those around you that are similarly feeling stressed. Welcome back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Justin Stoddart. Very excited about today's episode because it is so relevant, so timely, so needed in a time and an era when stress is potentially at an all-time high for you. We're going to give you very practical tips on how you can deal with stress less, play more. I'm very excited to introduce today's guest. Before I do that, let me remind you that the purpose of this show is to help you to think bigger. As you do, life will get better. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we get deeper into the episode. Let me remind you, though, that I've summarized within my, with all the answers that I get to my signature question, which is, how do you continue to be a big thinker? How do you continue to expand your possibilities? I put that on one document where you can go and review and expand your possibilities on a day-to-day basis. You can find that at justinstoddart.com/how to think bigger. It'll be a total gem for you as you deal with these times. Now, back to today's episode. Kryzia Olsen is her name. She's a naturopathic physician, an acupuncturist, and actually specializes in helping people deal with stress. Kryzia, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, we were talking beforehand that, there's really nothing to stress about these days. We're laughing, right? We're both in, the Portland, Oregon area. And I actually have a good friend, coworker that I work with. She said, Portland made the news in Germany, and it's not necessarily for good things. We have, kind of riots and looters and violence and fires and all kinds of things happening in our city that are causing people to be really uncertain. Right? I actually had a conversation with a real estate agent who has a property listed in downtown Portland, and needless to say, it's pretty tough going. There's not a lot of people looking at that property. And on top of that, we've got the pandemic. On top of that, we've got kids potentially being homeschooled again this fall. Talk to us, Kryzia, about some of the things that you're seeing that are causing people stress in our day and age right now.
I mean, literally, you nailed it. It's the pandemic, right? All that uncertainty. It is the injustice in the world, and literally, it feels like the world is on fire. And whether or not you're actually in it, or if you're feeling safer at home, there's still all of that uncertainty, and that's enough to create all of that stress and feeling like your life is everything's just like up in flames and all around you, and not having anything to ground yourself. And so there's just so much stress. And that's not even taking account into our personal lives, right? Because we all have our own shit that we got to deal with. And then there's everything else going on in the world that we literally have no control over. So there's, it's just bombarded literally everywhere.
It's interesting. You'd think that stay at home, stay safe would cause people to really kind of put their feet up, relax a little bit. It'd be like a really kind of easygoing time. It hasn't been that for many people. In fact, I would even argue in the real estate industry, there's a lot of people that are absolutely drowning in opportunity right now. That's just so busy that the residential real estate market has gotten so hot because rates are so low, right? Because there's so many people that are now wanting to make home maybe better than it was, should they need to stay there for a long, long time again, right? There's just so much demand in real estate right now, and so little supply that it's causing agents to really have to work around the clock to keep up with the demand and to seek out listings, which are kind of at an all-time low. So kind of piling that on top of, again, if people are saying hey, I don't have those concerns, business is hopping. My guess is that whether you recognize it or not, there's some added stress in your life right now that's causing you maybe not to work at your highest capacity, right? So let's talk about this a little bit, Kryzia. Obviously, you specialize in helping people both with digestive issues as well as just with dealing with stress. Kind of talk us through maybe some of the things that people can be doing now to maybe first, almost kind of the first thing is you probably need to recognize the fact that maybe I do have stress. So is that something that you find is that people are like, no, I don't have much stress, but really they do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of them. I actually was going through all the pandemic, and I was like, I don't think I'm that stressed. And then realizing, oh, wait a minute, I'm having the negative consequences. Oh, yeah, totally having more stress. And that's even with all the self-care that I inherently already do. So I can, it's really easy to feel like you're in amount of stress that's status quo, but that doesn't mean that it's not stress. Like you're still stressed. Your body doesn't recognize the difference. And what that then means is you've just gotten used to it. And you're then also normalizing the consequences that come from that. So I want to like back up in just a little bit and talk about like the actual stress response that happens physically within your body. And I'm going to go back to like ancient days, like way back when we were, having to deal with a stress like a tiger chasing us. So if a tiger was chasing us, we would, or we just see a tiger. Let's just say the tiger's sitting there and we see it, less threatening. And so just by seeing the tiger, your amygdala, which is your animalistic brain, gets triggered, and really, really quickly, before we even recognize it, tells our hypothalamus, which is the control center of our nervous system, to like GTFO. There's a tiger there. That's a very real threat that we need to get away from. Which then means that is priority number one, our survival. Which then means we don't care about our digestive tract, because do you really care about digesting your food if you're tiger food? Like, no.
Yeah, if you're going to be food.
No, right? Because you don't care about a bacteria or viral infection if there's a tiger. You don't care about reproducing, right? Because your reproductive system shuts down because like, I don't think it's a good time to have a baby right now. There's, tiger. And that's just to name a few of the systems that will get shut down. They literally get suppressed. And instead, what your body does is it sends that signal to your adrenal glands, which is the little hats on top of your kidneys. They're so cute. And what they do is they release adrenaline. And so now adrenaline's pumping through, and it dictates all of the actions that happen within your body, such as decreasing the blood flow to your digestive tract, your reproductive system, and all that. And instead, it focuses all of the blood circulation, all of that energy to your muscles, so you can run away or fight. Right? It's the fight or flight response. And then if that stress never goes away, your hypothalamus continues to tell your adrenal glands to keep pumping out cortisol, which then keeps your body on high alert. So essentially now it's like you're revving the system. Now, if you think about a car, right, you're revving your system and you're not putting more gas in, what's going to happen? Right? It's going to get empty. It's going to tank. And that's literally what happens with chronic stress. And so if you never take a break from stress, then you're constantly in that system. You're going to run out of cortisol, and your cortisol levels are all going to get all janky. And when that happens, now you have hormonal dysregulations. You can have insomnia, because cortisol actually is has an inverse relationship with melatonin. So now, right, cortisol is all about keeping you alert. And if you're getting cortisol shot up at nighttime, you ain't gonna fall asleep, right? And then you can have digestive complaints because you're literally you're not digesting your food. You're eating it, but you're not really digesting and absorbing it. And so you can have all of these symptoms. You can have weight gain, you can have weight loss, you can have the anxiety, the insomnia, because you're also constantly depleting your neurotransmitters. And so that's all what can happen just because of stress. So it's so incredibly important to put the brakes on.
All of the kind of major functions that make somebody happy, right?
Yes.
Food, sleep, love. All these things are impacted because of your stress. And again, you may not be recognizing this right now, but these things are because these adrenal glands are functioning constantly, because there's this fear of the unknown around you. All of a sudden now you find yourself not functioning at a capacity. What are some of the side effects that people can start to recognize that they maybe have a stress problem? I think you probably listed some of them, but are there more that people could really be attuned to that maybe aren't as obvious as others?
Mood changes, appetite changes are also rather common because of the cortisol. You can it can go one of either way. So with cortisol, what it does in your body, and the norepinephrine, actually tells your liver to release glycogen, which then changes it into glucose. So really it's just mobilize all of the energy. So then your body, right, is also then telling your hunger that like, we need to eat more. We need to eat in order to make sure that we're getting more calories in to support this go, go, go mentality, which then means your body's also going to do a really good job of holding on to the calories, because like, we need this. like we really need this. So right, then you can have weight gain, but then you can also have weight loss if you actually have that decreased appetite, or you end up, like some folks, they'll be so stressed out that, and so focused on whatever they're doing, that they actually forget to eat. And so then you'll have weight loss because you're still pulling those stores out, but you're not putting them back in as effectively. And then cortisol also plays a role in how you actually hold on to your fat and your nutrients in that regard. And so again, that's one aspect. Sleeping issues, especially if you haven't been having any, if all of a sudden you're starting to have difficulties falling to sleep, you're waking up in the middle of the night, that can literally all because of cortisol. Diarrhea, constipation, all of indigestion, heartburn, all can be because of stress.
Boy, there's a laundry list of things,
Yeah.
right? That all stem from stress. Let's get into now, Kryzia, talking a little bit about how people can start to deal with this, right? I think we've done an amazing job of telling us not just what's happening inside the body, but what signs they can look for. Now let's talk about how we start to remediate this. How do people start to go, okay, I got a problem. What are the next steps?
Yeah, so there's so many things that you can do. So really, it all starts because you have that the sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight, that goes off. That goes off because we recognize a threat, right? So it's about doing things that you don't find threatening. So play, literally play, whether that's with your children, your pets, play a board game, games, any sort of connection is going to help break that up, because it's going to put you more in that parasympathetic nervous system response, which is the rest and digest. Another great tip is actually one of my favorites, is deep belly breathing. So deep belly breathing is actually utilizing your diaphragm. And I love this because when you utilize your diaphragm, consciously breathe deeply into your abdomen, that diaphragmatic breathing, you activate your vagus nerve, which is directly connected and innervated by that parasympathetic nervous system. So literally, you cannot deep belly breathe and be stressed, because those just aren't compatible because of that nerve innervation. So as soon as you just take a moment to do some deep belly breathing, it's going to help, because it's just turning the sympathetic into the parasympathetic and making you more relaxed. It might take a little bit of time, a little couple deep breaths, but it'll eventually make a huge difference. And so that's one of the biggest tips that, or most important, I'd say, is a great thing to just start utilizing. My favorite thing is to do it right before meals, because there's literally no better time to be in the rest and digest phase than when you're about to eat your meal.
I love that. I want to talk a little bit about play. This past weekend, I was in Central Oregon, which I know you have an affinity for, and got out into nature. We did some great hikes, some kind of rigorous hikes, up to Green Lakes, if you know where that's at. And then from there up to the top of Black Butte, not from there, but separate hike. And it was interesting how then, even spending some time just in a swimming pool, playing with my kids, I'm feeling really healthy, right? And I don't know that I necessarily felt unhealthy before. I was experiencing a little bit of cabin fever, like probably a lot of people.
Yeah.
But it is interesting how playing, laughing, dancing, in fact, on the way home yesterday, I've got a son who's loves to dance. And when the right song comes in, it is a show in the seat next to him. He just goes off, and it's so fun to watch. And I noticed last night as I was going to bed, I was smiling inside because I was seeing him play, and it caused me to start to dance in my seat a little bit. And I love what you said about that. I think, again, stress less, play more. That's a theme that I know you kind of teach people. And it can be challenging, right? When you've got so much work lined up, it's I don't have time to play. But maybe you could compare this to kind of sharpening the saw, right? You've kind of heard that analogy from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the guy who, I can't stop to sharpen my saw. I've got to keep on sawing, right? And we're all dude, stop. You need to sharpen the saw. It's never going to get any better. And, or the person who says, I don't have time to stop and refuel my tank of gas because I've got to get somewhere. What happens when, at some point your saw gets so dull, it's not cutting, your car gets so empty, it's not driving. I think, how have you found to help people make time to play, right? When they're so busy, they're drowning in, sometimes it's stress, sometimes it's and or opportunity. It's I've got to make hay while the sun shines, right? We hear that. Have you found a way to kind of coach people to kind of work play into their daily schedule to where it's they don't feel like it's taking so much time, they can kind of stop and get gas and then get going again?
Yeah. So I do a lot of planning. So that's actually one of my other businesses. And so that's one of the tools that I personally use is I look through my week, and there are certain days when I know that it's just all work because I'm in the office seeing patients. And I also recognize that there are days like that in which that I'm okay with not doing anything else. If I just show up for that day, that is enough. And so sometimes it's recognizing that you don't have to do more. Like sometimes it's doing less. And when it comes to, like trying to be more productive, I found that it's actually I become more efficient and more effective when I sleep, when I eat well, and I take time to actually do self-care stuff. And I feel like right now, self-care is non-negotiable. It was always non-negotiable, but now it's definitely like, we need to be doing this. And I strongly believe we all need to be doing it every day. And the way that that can look like is literally taking like 5 minutes to do some deep belly breathing, to do some meditation, to go for a walk, to play with your kids, play with your pet, or if you're deep in the trenches with your kiddos and you need a break, to pawn your children off to someone else, so they're in good care, and retreating into your car, and that's perfectly okay. And it's really about just doing something that you find joy in. So like the thing I'm doing right now is actually I'm rewatching Parks and Rec. It's like literally one of my favorite shows. I love Leslie Knope. And just watching that and not feeling guilty, because I'm recognizing that and the laughter that it brings me is restorative to my soul and makes me then able to actually do more work because I'm in the right mindset. I feel better, right? Because I actually got the endorphins from the laughing, and from that relaxation. So taking a break is so incredibly important to actually be more productive and to keep your focus and to keep your drive, right? Because if we just keep going, if we just keep pushing, you get exhausted, and then you might want to feel like quitting. But the trick is to not quit, just take a break.
People that watch this show aren't the kind of people that will typically overdo play, right? Big thinkers, high achievers, we're pretty driven. We're very driven. And I know you can relate to that, kind of talking a little bit about your life prior to the show here, that playing can sometimes feel a little bit guilty. Like I need to be getting after it, right? People are counting on me. My goals are counting on me, right? My ambitions are counting on me. So I love what you said about kind of guilt-free play, and being sure that you get that in. That's something that I really have to work on. I'm grateful that I'm married to an amazing spouse that helps me balance. We've got kids. And so naturally I get pulled into that. Whereas otherwise I would probably work around the clock just because I love what I do. Absolutely. I'm passionate about what I do. Yet scheduling time for play. I appreciate you saying that. Everybody needs to do that because that will actually move you closer towards your ambitions, not further from them. I think that's sometimes the myth that we follow is that, well, I can't because that'll take me off track. When in actuality, that is the track. It's the track of not getting burnt out on the way to your biggest ambitions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about food, right? I think all of us have been probably a little closer to the pantry than we would have liked. I know that you've talked a little bit about weight loss. I think most people that at least that I've talked to have experienced not so much that, but more the weight gain, right? I know there's a number of different theories and ideas out there. Talk to us about some good just tips about good nutrition in times of uncertainty, potentially times of stress that can help us, again, be at our optimal level of productivity.
So nutrition is literally foundation. It's foundational for your health because it's all about what you put into your body, right? What you're fueling yourself with. So what I really like about diet is one, we all need to eat food. And so it's about a matter of choosing the foods that are going to fuel us, so that we can be more effective and efficient if that's what you're hoping for. Though there are plenty of times, I'm a huge fan of quality life. Like that is like my thing. And so sometimes I recognize we want that chocolate cake and that's okay. It's just a matter of moderation. And so when it comes to, I think the hardest thing for folks right now is stress eating, and snacking all the time. And the issue that that can come from that is that you're never giving your digestive tract a break, because you're consistently eating it, which then means your body has to constantly figure out, okay, I got to digest this food. And so there's this thing called the migrating motor complex. So the migrating motor complex is your body's natural dishwasher system. And so It only kicks on 90 minutes after fasting, and it takes 90 minutes for one round to go. So literally 90 minutes after you're done eating, your pancreas releases enzymes, your stomach releases acid, and and then literally what happens and then your gallbladder releases bile. That's the one I was missing. And then that all happens in your digestive tract, in the beginning parts of your small intestine, and literally you get a sweeping motion. And so it's literally sweeping up your food, any bacteria, virus, like whatever you picked up that's in your digestive tract, it's moving things along. As soon as you put calories into your system, that stops. So it's so often like if you're constantly snacking, you can go, say you're snacking every 2 hours, you're getting that 90-minute break, which is just like the pregame, right? Nothing's happening yet. It's just the revving up towards it. And then you get only 30 minutes of not even a full round, right? You're getting literally a third of a round, which then means that's getting stopped. And then you're starting that cycle over and over again. So one of the biggest things that folks can do at home to just help with their digestive tract and just nutrition overall is ditch the snacking. Like, don't snack. Have 3 large meals, because that's going to help with, if you're having gas, bloating, indigestion, that's going to help, because you're literally using your body's own system to help clean out, right? Because when we have food that just sits around in our intestines, our bacteria then is what ends up eating more of that, and then their byproduct is gas, and then you get bloating, which is really uncomfortable, and we don't need more things to be uncomfortable with or being uncomfortable in our bodies.
Great point. And we spoke a little bit prior about intermittent fasting. I know for some people that might be the right solution, right? And I love kind of your approach, is that like, it depends, right? It depends on who you are, what your goals are, what you're struggling with. There's different maybe kind of recipes, if you will, for different people, all falling under the same kind of health principles. What's your take on intermittent fasting? Maybe doing 2 meals a day, right? Lunch and dinner, and giving that digestive tract even a longer period of time to kind of repair. Is that a good idea, or is that just kind of a hack that's not timeless, that's going to cause kind of longer term health issues?
It really depends for the individual. So there are some folks who they do it and it works really, really well. Like we'll still see changes in their lipid profile. So actually their cholesterol levels can really improve, though there are some instances in which it can be harmful. And so if that, and that's where it's nice to have the labs to see the changes during a trial period, to see how is it actually affecting your body. And part of it can be that, it's also changing the food that you're eating, because if you end up only eating less condensed meals, you might tend to binge a little bit more. So you have to be careful. When it comes to food or a diet in general, it's really just eat a whole foods, plant-based diet. So lots of plants and having a variety of things is really beneficial. And then when it comes to, like actually doing the intermittent fasting, for some folks, it works really, really well whether have the clarity. And then there's other folks who I see their hemoglobin A1C, which is their 3-month snapshot of their blood sugar. So what's their tendency for their blood sugar? And there's some folks who they just naturally, it's lower. And so challenging their metabolism that quickly to go straight into, say, a 14-hour fast would mean that they're getting hangry and no one wants to be around them. They probably don't even want to be around them. Like, I'm one of those people, like I get hangry. And then I'm like, oh, great. I'm like, okay, got to recognize it. So in that situation, it's intermittent fasting might not be the thing, and you might just need to have more meals just spaced out. And as long as you're having the 3 to 5 hours between meals, you're still getting that digestive rest. So there's a lot of things that we can do to help make diet and those nutrition recommendations more specific and better for your body, because everyone's a little bit different.
I love what you said there, Christian. This isn't meant to be a plug of your practice, although it's going to appear that way. It sounds like we can go on the internet and find like valid cases for all these different ideas, right? But it takes really a professional to be able to say, okay, I think that could work for you. Why don't you try it? And then let's do blood samples and let's actually see if that's helping your body, which is something that you really can't do unless you have somebody like yourself who can really guide someone to say, hey, that intermittent fasting is actually working really well for you. Your blood, results are coming back strong, positive, good. And I see you're getting the results you want from a weight loss standpoint, and you feel better, energy's up, and then you can really be kind of guided with a professional who can actually look under the surface of what's happening, cholesterol levels and all that other stuff. Love
Yeah.
that. Talk to us, let's kind of end on maybe this before I go to the signature question. Let's talk a little bit about sleep. I think that seems to be a critical one for people that are stressed. They don't sleep well. How do you recommend that people get better sleep?
I actually just did a webinar. I've been doing a webinar every week for the past since June. And I just did one all about sleep tips, and that's available on my website. If anyone wants to watch that, my website is drkryziaolsen.com. And in there, I talk about specifically tips that you can do. And one of the if you're having difficulties falling asleep, do deep belly breathing. Like that really can make a really big difference. I just came across an app called Breathwork that really works with that, or meditation. The easiest way that I like to do that is just one hand on the chest, and then one hand on the abdomen, and then just really working on moving the one on the abdomen. Because when we breathe with our upper chest, that's going to keep us more in that sympathetic, that stress response, which then is going to make it challenging to fall asleep because your cortisol levels, your adrenaline is flowing through you. So, right, you're going to feel awake. Sometimes it's related with anxiety, and just doing some of that deep belly breathing can make a difference. There's melatonin, which can be really helpful for some folks. There's other supplements like L-theanine. I actually just did a post about that on my Instagram, about how that's really helpful to promote deeper sleep. If you listen to pink noise, so it's different than white noise. White noise is all of the frequencies, but it's all at the same intensity. Whereas with pink noise, is actually changes, it's more in congruence with like our heart field with what our normal frequencies are with our bodies and in life. And so it changes the frequencies depending on that intensity, depending on the frequency. And that's actually been shown to help push you more into what's called deep sleep. So we have different phases of sleep. And what we're really trying to do is get more into the deep sleep. And so when we get into that part, that's where we're actually getting more of the restorative functions. And so we're always trying to get you more into that. So one of the things about that though, is that it doesn't really happen too much in the daytime. So if you're doing naps or if you're sleeping too late at night, so if you go to bed like at 1, you're actually 1 a.m. and then you say you wake up like at 8 or 9, so you're still getting a good amount of hours of sleep. The quality is actually different because your body is not going to be able to get into as much deep sleep. And so the way that you can get more into that deep sleep is have a nice night routine, go to bed earlier. I usually, for most folks, it's about like 10 p.m. or so. And then at that point, your midway of where you're sleeping puts you at about like 1 to 3 a.m., which then means you're getting more of that deep sleep, more of that restorative sleep. And then like the other things you can do is do your self-care. So like an Epsom salt soak is absolutely amazing. That's gonna just help you be more relaxed. If you the trick though with the Epsom salt bath or just taking a hot shower before going to bed is that it can actually increase your core temperature, which then it might keep you up because your body needs to be at a lower body temperature in order to actually fall asleep. And so right, if you're in Portland and it's been hot lately or just it's summer, and with it being hotter out, some folks have much more challenging times falling asleep, and it's because of that. So what you can do is literally just take a cool rinse, like go in the shower, do a little cold rinse. It doesn't need to be excruciating cold where you hate me. It just needs to be a little bit cooler, and what that's going to do is bring down your body temperature a lot faster than it trying to cool itself down, and then you'll actually can help you fall asleep. And there's so many more.
Great tip. Amazing insight you've given. Again, not just about how the body works, but all these great tips on how to improve sleep, on how to improve our eating, our diet. I want to thank you so much for all of this wonderful contribution. Kryzia, how do people contact you if they've got questions about this? They want to go deeper. They want somebody to really kind of guide them and do the blood test where they can see what strategies are actually helping them, not just superficially, but deep within their true health of their, the results that they're getting from your lab results, et cetera. How do they contact you?
Yeah, so I am currently practicing in Northwest Portland, so at Quantum Healing Arts. I'm also doing telemedicine visits in Oregon, so that's also an opportunity. So if you're not local in Portland, that's perfectly fine, because telemedicine is a real thing and it's a beautiful thing. You can get a hold of me through my website, drkrysyaolsen.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at Dr. Kryzia, and reach out to me that way. All of my contact information is on both of those locations.
Awesome. Fantastic. Let's jump to the signature question of the show. Kryzia, obviously you're a big thinker. You've got a strong practice. You've got other businesses as well. You're kind of wired like the rest of us, right? You're a big thinker. You're a high achiever. What does somebody like you do to continue to be a big thinker, to continue to expand your own possibilities? What does that look like for you?
So for me, it looks like being in a mastermind group, and continuing to put myself around folks who I want to be more like, who inspire me, who push me is probably more important actually, and challenge me in that regards, because I can only see what I can see. And so, and that's also the problem that, we all kind of have, in the sense that me as a physician, I can't be my doctor, because it's so challenging for me to see my blind spots because I can't see them. Right. And so having an outside, like business coaches, having a care team, right, or just support that is, that challenge me and that will call me out is so incredibly important. And then what I find is like the most beneficial is that once I have that information, like once they've actually made me think bigger, the biggest thing is to actually start implementing. And for me, that looks like planning, because I need a plan in order to, I have that big picture and then making those smaller steps. Because I think that, it's not just about being up here, but actually doing something and mobilizing that energy.
So powerful. I love that. Yeah. Oftentimes we get in groups where people maybe aren't honest with us, right? It's kind of more like pandering to not hurt our feelings. I love what you said about choosing people who will be brutally honest with you with love in mind, right? They're doing it because they care about you, not because they're trying to be mean, but actually finding people who will tell you the truth, and people, like you said as well, that you want to be like them, right? Are these people that you want to be like? If not, then maybe they're not the right group for you, because ultimately you're going to emulate who they are and what they're doing. So, so great, such great advice. I want to thank you again so much for everything you've contributed to us. And again, would encourage anybody here that's dealing with stress, that either recognizes it or is now recognizing it. That Kryzia is a great resource for you, whether you follow her on Instagram, whether you go watch her webinars, or whether you reach out and contact her and start to work with her. I think all are a great option depending upon where you're at and what you need, and to not be ashamed of that. I think if anything has changed in our world, part of it is the fact of just people being real with who they are and being open to the fact that when you need help, you need to speak up because you need help, right? And that there's a whole world out there that is hopefully open to offering you that care and that support and that help. So I wouldn't be, again, if you're an agent listening to this and you're like, look, I don't want to go seek out help, I don't need it, that's a sign of weakness. I would beg to differ. It's a sign of strength. People realize when they have a great all-star team around them, helping them take care of themselves and their health. Those are what the strong do. Those are the ones that are true high achievers, what they do. So thank you so much again, Kryzia, for being one of those people to whom we can rely to get our health to the next level, to be sure our bodies are working at optimal levels so that we can go on to fulfill the missions that each of us have. So thank you for that. And again, I want to give one more reminder to the audience that when you listen to this show, I'm gonna give you a charge, and that is to go think bigger. Thank you, Kryzia, for helping us do that today. It's been a total pleasure.